Well, good morning, everybody. And again, my name is Bruce Bolger, and it's a pleasure to speak with my colleagues in Australasia. I've had the pleasure of visiting Australia, not New Zealand, although my daughter had a wonderful honeymoon in New Zealand just a couple of years ago. So I'm going to get right into two exciting trends, and they apply very much to Australia and New Zealand. Yes, I'm a Yankee. I'm from New York. I'm calling in from right outside of New York City. But I've actually, as I said, been to Australia. I'm familiar with the marketplace there. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is going to be very relevant to your business. So there are really two categories that we believe promotional products distributors can benefit from, not only in the United States, but really in all countries where distributors are active. And the first is something called brand gifting. And that's the use of brand name products for retail brands for gifting, as opposed to non-retail brands. And it's an enormous marketplace in the United States, and it's particularly large in that most of it goes through retail because the corporate buyer is not familiar with the fact that they can buy wholesale and they can get actually better pricing and better services by working through the trade. And there are brands that are active in your marketplace in Australia. And there are also technologies that provide gifting programs in Australia. And so the second area that I'm going to talk about, and when I say Australia, I'm talking Australasia. I know your two countries, if anybody from New Zealand is on. We know you're about 1,800 miles apart and two separate countries. But from a trading block point of view, I think it's fair that your organization covers both, so I'm going to be referring to both of your countries. So the second opportunity is related to engagement, and that is employee engagement. And there's an enormous opportunity today, especially with the work at home movement. And of course, that's barely happening in New Zealand. And it's, I guess, obviously happening in Australia. But people are going to be working from home more and more, probably for lots of different reasons, even in countries that have not been affected as much by the pandemic, because it's turning out that it's a pretty smart way for people to work and do business. All over the world, we share the same issues of two-income households and children to raise and periodic lockdowns and whatnot. So the ability to connect with employees through technologies that you can reach them on their smartphone is an enormous business opportunity. And both of these opportunities enable you to make money while you sleep. And I think that's one of the things that all of us would like to be able to do. And I'm not even kidding. So the first opportunity is to sell brands for what we call here in the States now surprise and delight gifting, for business gifting, for incentives, for recognition, and amenities. And even before COVID, there was a very big trend toward the increased use of brand name products. 2 years, 3 years ago, no one have ever thought of giving somebody a coffee mug that costs $35 or a water bottle that costs $35, I should say. And now Yetis are one of the most popular brands in the US promotional products market. North Face, Patagonia, all of these brands have become very active in the marketplace. Watch brands like Citizen and Bulova have been for many, many years. So that is in Australia. It's the same situation as it is in the States. Very few people have ever heard of the incentive business. They don't know about wholesalers that are active in the marketplace. So if they want to buy gifts of any kind, they go to retail. They should go to you. And I'll get into that, the details of that in a few minutes. The other opportunity, and that's also where you can make money while you sleep, and that's by selling engagement technologies. And there are engagement technologies in Australia right now, and I will be able to provide folks the name of one when I follow up. I don't represent it. I am just like PPA. I should say I'm very much like APPA. We're like an association. We do not sell technologies or anything like that. In fact, I'm informing you folks of opportunities. I will be happy to point you in the ways to make money, but that's all I'm doing here today. So let's first talk about some priorities. Let's talk a little bit about your end user client. I'm very familiar with the promotional products industry here in the States. It's very similar to what happened in Australia. The events business has collapsed here. That was a big driver of promotional products. Marketing budgets in some industries got cut hard. But, you know, there were certain trends going on anyway that were hurting promotional products before this. And that was the fact that there's a big concern about sustainability, i.e. products ending up in landfill. And a couple of top magazines in the United States, yes, magazines still exist, although mostly online, but one of them called Fast Company, which I believe is in Australia, Wired Magazine, Fortune, all ran articles over the last year questioning swag, which is a term, of course, that's used to describe promotional products, at least in the United States, and the concern that a lot of people don't use them and that they end up in a drawer and that they end up in landfill. Well, the thing about brands, and I'm not here in any way to denigrate the power of promotional products. Of course, they have a tremendous role, and they always will have a tremendous role, at least in our lifetimes. But the brands have been making an increasing role, playing an increasing role in this business because companies want to make sure that people hold on to things. So what's happening is that companies have been cutting away at some of the peripheral items that people would be more likely to throw away, and they're spending more money on products like a Yeti mug, Yeti, I should say, water bottle. Very few people are going to throw away a Yeti water bottle. I don't know whether that brand is popular in your country, so forgive me. You know, but likewise, if you give somebody UGG boots, which I believe came from your country originally, Uggs, no one's going to throw away an UGG boot. They might give it to their daughter or to their friend, but they're not going to throw it away. So companies have been shifting toward brands anyway. But on a broader level, especially since COVID, there's been some other key trends. And one of them is that it's getting more and more important for people to engage, companies to engage their employees. Employee engagement in the United States has not risen at all in the last 10 years, according to Gallup surveys. And worldwide surveys that I have seen show very little increase in employee or customer engagement in most Western countries. And the reason is that, frankly, most CEOs have not really focused strategically and systematically on people in the same way that they do on, say, buying a factory or buying a fleet of cars or trucks, for which they run very careful and rigorous ROI analysis. Well, companies have not done that in the past with people. So they tend to set aside budgets for rewards and recognition, promotional products and gifting, but they don't really keep track of it. And one employee might, you know, do some gifts with a credit card and buy it at retail, and very little strategic and systematic approach brought to it. Well, that is really changing now. And that was another factor that was changing before the COVID crisis, but that is being accelerated by the COVID crisis. And I'm sure you've heard the world has gotten so small today. I'm sure you've heard the saying that COVID is speeding up all the trends that were taking place anyway, and there's no question that that's true. And you might have heard that the need to focus on people is becoming a worldwide concern. The World Economic Forum, one of the world's most prestigious business associations, they run the Davos event that some of you're probably your Australian Prime Minister, or I'm not sure whether your charismatic New Zealand Prime Minister went, but she's probably too cool for Davos. But the idea is that it's a big organization, and they have just issued a manifesto, if you will, on stakeholder capitalism metrics. And stakeholder capitalism is another buzzword you folks are going to start hearing because we're also interlinked. And stakeholder capitalism is a new form, a reformed form of capitalism that focuses on achieving shareholder value by creating value for customers, employees, communities, and the environment. And so the World Economic Forum has become a huge advocate of stakeholder capitalism, and they just published metrics that are available online, and I'll send to Ida a link to some of the information that you can find on this, because this is a worldwide phenomenon. No, this is not an American phenomenon. This is a worldwide phenomenon. It so happens that the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States recently issued new regulations that require public companies to disclose their practices for recruiting, retaining, and developing employees, and the metrics that they use to measure from year to year those activities. That's huge, but that doesn't apply to Australia in any way, except for the publicly held companies that do business in the US. So there's a bigger and bigger focus on keeping our stakeholders focused, Companies are moving to a digital strategy. Everybody thinks the United States is ahead of the world. Well, I think you folks now know that's not true anymore. We used to be, and we were leaders in entrepreneurialism and very proud of a lot of things we do here, but we are not the leaders anymore. The world has really caught up, and in some ways, I think, gone beyond us in certain ways. But one thing I think the entire world is still behind on, and that is the digitalization of our employees. Having a direct smartphone connection where I can have my employee surveys, tests, quizzes, information about my brand, rewards and recognition, gifting, everything. There are technologies available in your country where all of that can be done on a phone, and you can measure all sorts of things with that. You can measure levels of engagement. You can measure how well people understand your company's values, your company's purpose. You can run training programs, informational programs. So they are definitely the future. So another trend is that companies are getting more and more concerned about quality, productivity, the health and engagement of their employees. They want to foster innovation. And companies, spend an awful lot of money on people with no ROI. There's now all sorts of ways to measure ROI of people practices. And so that is going to be a very big trend. Now, why now? Well, COVID has made people a number one asset. What we've all learned, companies always say that people are the number one asset, but they really aren't in many cases. And when you look at the typical company's balance sheet, 20% of it is tangible assets, factories, office, equipment, and 80% of it is goodwill. And that's people. That's everything lumped in with no measure. And companies discovered that, well, without people, my tangible assets are worthless. So CEOs all over the world have been taking a different look at their stakeholders and how important it is to hold on to the stakeholders that are important to them. So organizations need help finding more efficient ways to award engaged people. They want to find ways to measure it. And under this, only about 15% of companies, I would actually say 15% of large companies have a digital engagement platform. But in fact, probably only about 2 to 5% at most in our country. And I would guess that it's probably similar to Australia. Now, of course, if any of you have questions, Ida is going to be checking the Q&A. I'm not going to. She's going to do that as the moderator here. So don't hesitate. There'll be plenty of time for questions. It's early morning or beginning of the day, your time. I know you want to get your days going. So, and then finally, in the US, and this is just as true in Australia, in terms of proportion to your economy, there are very few incentive, recognition, and loyalty companies in your country compared to the overall population. In the United States, there are 2 million potential businesses that are big enough to run an incentive program. There are 220,000 companies in the US that have sales of over $10 million. And yet we only not even have 100 incentive and recognition and loyalty programs. So a tremendous amount of this business moves through retail. So let me get into a little bit more with the brand gifting. And when I look this way, I'm just doing a time check and we're in good shape. So essentially, this is the use of brands in business. And we're calling it now brand media, because you've been doing business gifts in your country for years. And obviously, if you're going to give somebody a meaningful business gift, it usually will be a brand. And, depending on what that brand is, it might be etched with a gift, with a message, or it might not. But usually the packaging will customized. It will become with a letter. It will come, maybe it'll be hand delivered. There'll be some sort of experience with it, because the research shows and common sense shows that gifts that are given with personal reflection, in other words, if I really know who you are, I know that you're a trekker and you really would love to get a great weekend. Well, I'm going to recommend you go up to Binabura or something like that, But if I know that, no, you're not in any way interested in that, and you're a beach person, well, we're going to send you up to Cairns or, up on the northeast coast. So just like with gifts, if somebody is into a particular craft, if somebody's a really serious engineer, you're not going to give them a cheap brand like a Black & Decker, which I believe is a brand you have there as well. You would probably give them a higher quality a drill, or a steel or a Milwaukee. Again, Johnson DeWalt. I'm not sure of the brands that are big in Australia, certainly not in tools for that matter. But the idea is it's about being selective, personal, giving that gift with meaning. And there's all sorts of applications for these. And the big one now in the States, and this business is booming right now. We're in a horrendous recession in many respects, but surprise and delight gifting for employees is booming. And what is that? Well, that's, for instance, Ida might be working really hard and she's been really working late nights and she hasn't been able to, see her kids or whatever. I don't even know whether Ida has kids, but you get the story. And the idea is we want to thank her. And we know that Ida, loves cooking. So I'm just, again, guessing completely. And we know she's really been hankering for a new beautiful Cuisinart. So what do? We send her a beautiful Cuisinart. We send it in a box. She opens it up and has a ribbon. There's a beautiful note. And when she opens it up, her whole family sees it, right? And, because when a big box comes from the boss, people have a tendency to look at it. And the kids gather around and you open up that box and there's a letter from the president and nobody will ever forget that gift. You send somebody a $100 gift card, you send them a check, it'll be forgotten within days. But that Cuisinart will forever be remembered as a gift from the company. But they're also gifting, so surprise and delight, what that means is there's no expectation, the person doesn't know it, and surprise and delight is also being used in consumer marketing, B2B marketing. When a customer hits a threshold, they've bought a certain amount of something, and these are all techniques you as business people can use as well. If somebody all of a sudden hits a big threshold, and that they are a big lover of a certain type of Australian white wine, bang, you shoot them off a Chardonnay, a case of that beautiful Chardonnay. And again, if you pick out the right Chardonnay for that wine lover, and you send it with a nice note, they're never going to forget it. Other applications, sales door openers, you're seeing this an awful lot. I understand that the Australians, you're culturally maybe not as jumping on this video thing that Yankees are. Yankees always want their 15 seconds of fame, so we're always jumping in front of cameras, as you know. So in any case, there's a lot of use of now gifting to get people to attend virtual webinars, to get people to do a virtual sales presentation. That would be in Yankee Talk, a sales door opener. Dealer loaders, that's a gift with purchase offer. If you buy a case of something, we give you a gift. And that's often used with smaller businesses where the owner appreciates a little bit something special. An extra half a point of commission isn't going to move them. But gee, you give them a beautiful gift that's going to mean a lot to their significant other. Believe it or not, that's very motivational. Gifts for customers, donors, or volunteers, very big fundraising. Brands for office and event amenities. We are going to be back in our offices. Good news in Melbourne that you guys are beginning to open up. We haven't really in New York here, even though we can technically go to our offices, nobody's going. People are not following the rules in New York. They're being even more cautious. Everybody's wearing masks here in the New York area, by the way. It's a voluntary thing. In some parts of the country, we're doing it. In other parts, we're not. You've heard about that. But so another thing is office amenities. If you have a nice new office, you're not going to get any old cheap clock radio. You might want to have a bunch of nice clock radios, a nice microwave. Well, guess what? Those can be bought through wholesalers when you know the right places. You can get good pricing on them, and you can help your clients select brands. So in promotional product, you select products. In the world of brands, you select media. You select the right brand for that person. In this country, you're not going to send a truck driver to a Ritz-Carlton necessarily. You know what? He may not even like it, or she might not even want to be coming in off the truck, off the road. They're going to feel uncomfortable. They don't want to go to a schlocky hotel, but a Marriott might be just fine. So, and I'm using travel as examples, but the same is for merchandise. Picking out the right brand for people is an art. And we actually have a website that's free of charge called the Brand Media Coalition that tells the story of a growing number of brands. And that applies to your country as much as ours in terms of what the story is of that brand. For instance, the UGG story is a tremendously exciting story. And when you know how the UGG story was invented or came about, you know that they were an Australian fashion in the surfing world. And so a couple of Americans went down there, saw these Uggs, brought them back to the United States, couldn't sell them for a hill of beans, couldn't sell them. And then finally, the Australians won one of the big Olympics games. I forget which. Forgive me, it might have been swimming. I don't remember what. But either way, all of the women appeared on the stage, on the podium, wearing UGG boots. The rest is history. So brands are a story. And so when you you get involved with brands, you want to know their story. And it's not always easy because companies don't make it easy to find their brand stories, ironically. We're trying to help. So then the concept again of brand gifting, it's a selective use of brands for business gifting. Yes, they can be customized and personalized. Some of them with I forget the technical name of that type of printing, slab printing, pad printing. I'm sorry. Of course, brand name apparel is obviously embroidered and whatnot. But generally speaking, it depends upon whether you want to customize the item. If you give somebody a TV, you don't necessarily want to have on that TV, with right on the front of it, so your kids are watching it every day, with thanks from the Connaught Corporation. Maybe not. But the idea is that the gifts are selected to have a personal appeal, and there's all sorts of applications for them, and it's an enormous business. And in your country, like ours, most of it is going at retail. And the retail can't provide drop shipping very easily. They can't usually provide bulk pricing. They can't provide decoration. It makes no sense to buy at retail, but most business people do buy at retail because they've never heard of it. So what do you need to know when you're using brands? Well, you want to know the goal, and I'll get to how you make money in a minute. But you need to know the goals and audience of your clients, right? As I mentioned before, it's really helpful to know the stories, because when you're giving somebody a gift, it might be nice to tie in the brand story with that gift, because it's a way oftentimes for a company to extend its own brand. So I might be a tiny little company, and let's say I have a lot of female employees, and I give everybody an UGG. Well, let them choose from a collection of UGGs. I use that as an example because you folks are, from Australia. But the point is that when you do that, you're making a statement about your own brand. You're making a statement about who you are. UGGs, as you know, have kind of an irreverent brand. Hey, I don't need to wear some sexy slim boot. I'm a proud woman. I'm tough, and I can wear whatever I darn well look like because it's comfortable. That's kind of what UGG says. And that's a very different story than another brand of boot, right? A French brand, for instance. So it's really the ability to selectively curate and promote brands for that audience. And then, of course, the same thing that right now, customization and personalization, and then learning to source the right wholesalers. And then, of course, taking advantage of that whole concept of surprise and delight gifting. Now, let's get into the business model. First off, you should be able to get access to wholesale pricing from wholesale distributors. They might exhibit at the APPA show even. They're wholesale distributors, and they're folks that specialize in brands. And they can provide discounted pricing very often. And then if there are now surprise and delight gifting platforms. Here in the States, there's a very popular brand. It's not in your country, I don't believe, 1-800-Flowers. They have a surprise and delight gifting platform. And there's a surprise and delight gifting platform in Australia that I'll be able to share with Ida. And there might be others as well. I did not have a chance to do research on the sourcing for Australia. But Ida for APPA, it's a new membership opportunity for you folks as well. There are new suppliers that should be in your market, because the brands now are looking for alternative channels, and employees are great people to give brands to, because if you give an employee a brand and they like it, well, that might turn them on to something, and the employee might go out and buy more of it, or their family might buy it, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so you make money, you can make money while you sleep on these gifting technologies. For instance, with 1-800-Flowers, they give a 15% rebate on this technology. Now, you're not doing any work. And by the way, this isn't available in Australia, so I'm not, unfortunately, I can't tell you where to go to get this. But the idea is they provide somebody, a company like Merrill Lynch, with a platform. Any employee who's authorized can access it. They get discounts, and then they can earn a rebate. Well, if you're a reseller and you sell that to Merrill Lynch, you get a portion of that rebate. So every time an employee is using this, every time they're gifting somebody, ka-ching, you're getting money. And it could be 3 in the morning, you're getting money. Could be 2 in the afternoon, you're getting money. And you're not involved with touching anything, you're not shipping it, you're not invoicing it. You work with a company like this company, Global Reward Solutions, that is active in Australia. It's all automated. You just get paid. And their margins outside of flowers, I think, can go up to 25%. Now, many distributors go 25%. Oh my gosh, I want 40%. And I've been yelled at in the past when I talk to distributors. It's changed now, but about 10 years ago, if you went to a PPA show here in the United States and you talked about brands, literally you could get some distributors yelling at you, the margins are horrendous. I want to get 40, 50%. Well, there's an old saying here in the States, you can't put your margins into the bank account, right? The average order size in the United States for promotional products is about $800. The average order for business gifting is $12,000 for one bulk order, or a client that's buying products over time. That's a minimum. There are business gift and incentive programs, and I'll get to that, we'll have time, that go up to $1 million or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I ask anyone who wants to wonder this, what would you rather get? 40% of an $800 order or 20% of a $10,000 order? It's going to be the same amount of work if it's a bulk order. And if it's an automated order, if it's on a surprise and delight gifting platform, it's no work. You make that, you set it up for the client, they start using it, and then every month you send them a report. Here's who used it. Here's what they used it for. Here's how much it cost. And now finally a company can actually track their business gifting rather than having everybody using credit cards, going to the local department stores, and then running up cards and then putting it in their expense reports. That doesn't make sense anymore for most good-sized companies. So to wrap up, the first opportunity, surprise and delight gifting, business gifting, use of brands to give to people, for employees, for customers, to attend sales meetings, to attend a sales virtual meeting, you name it, people are using brands. So now I'm going to move on to the second opportunity, and this is related to engagement programs. I referred to that before. There are technologies now that enable you to put your entire engagement of your employees on a smartphone app or an application, either iOS that runs on iOS or runs on Android, where you can have your entire employee engagement platform right there on their phone, no matter where they are. You can send out texts or e-newsletters informing them of news. You can have a whole hands meeting, announce a whole hands meeting. You can have newsletters. You can have case studies. You can have tests, quizzes, feedback, surveys, innovation ideas, idea programs, rewards and recognition, even gifting. There are different technologies that do different things. But what it does give is a company a direct, integrated, aligned way to communicate with, to train, to motivate, to inform on one platform. Folks, that is the biggest opportunity, I think, in business in the world. The buzzword here in the States, digitalization of the workforce. It pertains just as much to your country. You folks love to travel around your great land, and everybody wants to be mobile. Well, guess what? Companies still want to have a connection to you. They want to lay a pipeline into your heart and mind, and this is the way to do it. So employee engagement platforms are an enormous way to make money because you can promote wellness, safety, quality, productivity. You can promote the concept of being brand ambassadors, of having employees help you recruit customers or recruit other talent, or volunteers and donors to commit more. Everybody needs to motivate people, and technology makes it possible. You can sell a technology platform today that connects every element of an employee relationship and to a rewards and recognition platform, so that as people accumulate points, they can redeem those points for desirable rewards. So companies are using them to achieve specific sales and marketing, productivity, safety, and other goals, reinforcement of brand values, culture and coaching, assessment and feedback, communications, learning, rewards, and recognition. And then you can get a boatload of analytics out of these platforms because you can see their level of engagement with the platform. Then you can see whether the employee hit their targets in the program. You can see how long they stayed with your company. You can see whether they recommended any employees or customers. You can actually get behavioral data. And then when you compare behavioral data with employee survey data, then you really have your fingers on the pulse of your employees. So there are multiple companies that provide these tools for you. Again, I will get to Ida a name of a company that they can contact, that you folks can contact. And again, I will, if any of you want to email me, I'll be looking for more in Australia. But the best of these companies can provide you marketing and sales support, sales materials, program management technology. Some of them here in the States, you can get on the phone and they can help you, your client, design a program. They do all the administration and payment processing, and they're different business models, but essentially you can get paid upon points issuance. When people have earned points, you can get paid on the per seat charges. Some of these technologies charge, like with customer relationship management, like a Salesforce software that's popular in your country. There's a per seat charge. Well, these per seat charges are much less, but there is a per seat charge, and you can make 25% on that. You can make 25% on points issued. You can make 20% on the rewards. So there's all sorts of different ways to make money. Now, this is a slightly more complicated business than the brand gifting. Brand gifting is right up the alley of every distributor. If I were a distributor, I wouldn't even think twice I'd be in brands, especially in the States. Again, I don't know your countries as well. Having visited there 15 years ago does not make me an expert. But again, there are well-designed, well-established incentive companies in Australia, just like there are here in the States, and you can rep for those companies. And they bring in all sorts of opportunities for you to sell more. And what's the business model? Again, you can get fees for process design, for helping companies to develop an ROI-based program, and some of these companies can help you. Our organization, by the way, has a training program where you can learn how to do all of this, and it's in English, just like, so if you folks are interested in that, we have information for free that you don't have to spend any money on. You go to our website, there is so much free information. You never have to join our organization. You don't have to become a member in any way to learn all of this stuff. But when you go to the site, you'll see everything you need to learn about it. You make money on technology. You can make money on surveys and assessment, communications and learning. Lots of ways to make money. And if you represent one particular solution provider, you could actually just rep for that company. And some of these programs, folks, are huge. If you get a 20-25% commission, you may say, what am I doing that for? Well, guess what? This program could be a $500,000 program, and you might turn it over to that company and they're going to do all the work. You don't need to do any of the work, but you stay in touch and you keep that relationship with the client. You make sure that they're happy. You troubleshoot. You're making sure they're getting the reports that they need. You can't just walk away from it. You can make money while you sleep, but you have to work on that relationship. So that's very important. So again, we provide, I'll just quickly show you, this will be on the link. These are free websites that we provide that you can get all sorts of information on it. There are elements that don't apply to Australia at this point. We have a brand media specialist program. You're free to join, but there's not any real benefit for you. It's free, but if you don't get anything, then what's the point, right? But we actually do provide distributors marketing material to help them market these different types of brands. And by the way, Ida, this might be something that PPA can do to help out your community as well. And then we have these different publications here, and I'm going to send you all this deck afterwards, or Ida will send it to you. This is all free information you can get to learn everything without having to pay a dime to anybody. And this is additional articles and information resources that you're going to find on the deck that I send you. Don't bother writing it down. You're going to get it anyway. And I believe Ida is recording this. And so how do you get started? Well, in the States, it's a little differently. In your country, the way to get started is to research Google incentive companies in your country, Google, brands, special markets might be a term, or wholesale master fulfillment companies. You want to find the wholesalers and the incentive companies that are serving the incentive market and find out whether they have technologies. And I assure you, if you call them up and you say you want to rep for them, I would be very surprised if anybody said no. They would be delighted to have you probably rep for them. And then we have a program to assist engagement agencies. I'm not going to go through this, but we do have a complete program that helps people who want to get into the engagement space. And this program would be workable in Australia. We actually provide websites and information, but this is not a sales presentation. I'm here just to inform you, but we do have a program for distributors that want to get into the engagement space. We provide them with a website. We provide them with marketing materials, and we help them get started. And so if you want to learn about the engagement space, likewise, these publications and resources are free, and there's lots of information. We have a YouTube channel. It'll all be in what I send to Ida. She'll share it with you. So there's tons of free information to explore. Hopefully all of you are very busy right now with your fourth quarter. Hopefully, you know, the holiday season is creating a lot of opportunities. And I would also imagine a lot of you have taken advantage of the PPE business in the United States. I would say that personal protective equipment has saved the day for many a distributor. And I think that's going to become a very important category in your field for years to come. So folks, that concludes my formal presentation. I think we're pretty much right on time. And I see, Ida, that we have a couple of questions.
We do. Thank you, Bruce, for this fantastic presentation. We've had a great question come through from David. He has asked, how can promotional companies be protected from clients going direct?
Well, you'll be very happy to know that in most cases, companies don't have time to go to direct, okay? You know, the typical marketing department in most companies is overwhelmed. And as you know, they can go direct in promotional products right now. You can import directly from China into Australia probably pretty easily. Hong Kong is what, a 9-hour flight from Sydney. You can be in a factory in overnight and buying direct. So the way, generally speaking, end user buy through agencies, and in Australia, they might very often buy through their marketing or advertising agency. So that those of you who call on marketing and advertising agencies, they are not going to go around you to work directly if you add value. If you don't add value, yeah, people might. So I would say the answer to that is the same in promotional products. Now, if you add value, they won't go around you. If you don't add value, forget it. You know, by the way, you can buy promotional products on the internet here, and as you can in Australia. You don't even need a distributor. There's something called 4imprint here in the United States. They're running national television advertising. You can't watch TV without seeing them, and they are selling promotional products. But they're not putting the good distributor out of business. They're putting the distributors out of business who are basically commoditized. One other point on that, in the States, you're going to see more and more distributors who are taking catalogs off their websites. They're getting rid of their catalogs because if your client is going to shop on a catalog, they don't need you. The client who needs you needs help with a strategy. They need help sourcing. They need help with fulfillment. They need help with project management. They need help with brand selection. They need help maybe selecting the right technology. They need help getting the reports that they need. Your country and our country is the same thing. Staffs are very, very short right now. And finally, if you work with a very good, I see one other question, David. Yes, we're going to be sending that slide presentation to you, to Ida, that is, and she'll have that tonight or today, your time. But the other issue is that if you work with a trusted incentive company in Australia and you tell them you're working on an account, they would be committing suicide to go to work directly with that account. And most of these companies would not do that because at the end of the day, and this is something that everybody's forgetting, the internet has done a lot of things, but it has not eliminated human nature. And human nature still likes to do business with people that we trust. We still like to have experts who we can count on to do things. If I'm in the automotive business and I'm a director of marketing for dealerships, I'm not an expert on gifting. I'm not an expert on promotional products. And if I think I'm an expert, you're in trouble anyway. So look, there's the reason a lot of distributors are moving into brands and incentive programs and engagement and also into other related areas is to address the issue that the distributor marketplace is probably shrinking. But the needs for businesses to engage people is going up. It's not going down. So if I were a distributor, I'd be looking at new ways to engage people, because your relationships and your ability to find solutions, that is where you add value. And that's not going to be replaced by a catalog. That's not going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, at least not for generations. So I think I've answered the 2 questions. Is there another one there, Ida? There might be. No, I guess that was just a thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So if, Ida, I don't think there are any other questions.
No, there doesn't appear to be any more questions. However, if you do have questions that come to mind for Bruce after the presentation, you can send him an email through to bolger@theicee.org. I will also include Bruce's email address as part of the follow-up email you will receive over the coming days, along with the link to view today's recording and the PowerPoint presentation. So thank you once again, Bruce. This was, like I said before, a fantastic presentation. On behalf of Bruce, Bolger and APPA, thank you for all our participants in joining us today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon, and I hope you have a great evening, Bruce.
Well, thank you very much. May all of you come out of COVID better than ever.
Same to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.